The Boy in the Chains. The Aurelian slave skiff descended through the pale mist over the pine-covered hills, its engines whispering with anti-grav hum. Inside, metallic restraints clicked into place as the crew inspected their newest prize. A small human boy, no older than 10. He sat quietly, hands bound in front of him, legs dangling from a bench. His pale gray eyes were unreadable, watching everything. "That's the one?" asked Cress, the pilot, glancing back at the cargo hold. "Scrawny little thing." "That's him," said Var, the lead scout. "Found him alone near a hut in the woods. Weirdest damn thing. Thing stood on chicken legs. Took half a stun charge just to get near the place." Cress snorted. "Probably just some hallucination. This planet's air's full of spores. Still good haul. Humans fetch high in the Varelian markets. Especially the unchipped ones," Var added, patting the boy's head mockingly. Luca didn't flinch. No records, no protections. Just ripe for claiming. Where was his mother? Some crone deep in the forest. Didn't put up a fight. Didn't even speak. Just watched us drag him away like she didn't care. Var shifted, glancing at the boy again. I almost felt bad for her. Crest chuckled. Some backward, which living off bark and mushrooms. She's probably dead already. The boy blinked slowly, still silent. Var leaned closer. "Hey, kid, you understand me." Luca stared at him. There was no fear in his expression, just stillness. "She's coming." Var froze. "What?" The boy repeated. "She's coming." Back on the forest floor, where mist slithered through ancient trees, the clearing where the hut had stood was empty. Only deep claw-like impressions remained in the moss. Giant three-toed prints stretching eastward. Birds no longer sang. No insects buzzed. The forest listened. Inside the hut, now stomping through the folds of space between worlds, Baba Yaga knelt before her mortar, bones scattered around her like puzzle pieces. Her gnarled hands stirred a swirling broth of ash, blood, and stardust. Her eyes, white with age and power, burned brighter with every beat of her heart. "My child," she whispered. A skull lantern on a hook flared with blue flame. The hut groaned as its massive legs adjusted course. Did they think I had forgotten the old paths? The bone roads of the void. She stood, unbending despite her twisted spine. Her silhouette flickered, an old woman one moment, a towering beast cloaked in shadows the next. She reached into a cupboard lined with teeth and feathers, pulling free a scroll wrapped in skin. When unrolled, the map within shifted like a living thing, revealing the Aurelian trade routes and orbital relay points. Baba Yaga didn't need coordinates. She could smell her son's scent on the paper. "They took blood of my blood," she growled, "and they will know what it costs to touch a witch's kin." With a muttered curse, she placed her palm against the wall. It opened, not like a door, but like a wound, revealing a portal pulsing with sickly light. "Fetch my broom," she told the hut. It shuddered in response, extending a crooked arm of wood and sinew. A bone-handled staff snapped into her waiting grip. Baba Yaga stepped into the portal without hesitation, and the hut, legs twitching, followed, vanishing into the stars. Aboard the slave skiff, Var was getting nervous. "Did you hear that?" he asked Cress. Cress paused, frowning. "What static?" "No, like whispering, in the walls." Luca tilted his head slightly, as if listening too. Then he smiled. "She's close." Cress slapped a hand on the control panel. "Just atmosphere interference. We're almost to orbit. Get ready for FTL jump." As the skiff rose above the cloud line, Luca's voice came again, quiet and sure. "She told me you'd come. She told me they always come. And that when they take, she follows." The lights flickered. Then, the screaming started from the comms channel. Not from a boy, not from the crew, but from another ship above them. One that was now silent. The hut that walks. The stars parted like torn silk as Baba Yaga's hut emerged from the wound between dimensions. Its chicken-like legs clanked and groaned against the metal plating of an orbital debris field, once a relay station for the Aurelian Empire. Now, only drifting corpses of satellites and shredded hulls remained. The hut paused, perched on a wide, flat section of broken station. It sniffed, literally, The long tongue of wood and moss flicked from beneath its floor, tasting the electromagnetic trails lingering in vacuum. Inside, Baba Yaga stood before her mortar, whispering to the bones floating within. She wore her shawl now, a tattered thing woven from shadows and wolf fur, stitched with the teeth of liars. The skulls mounted on the walls of the hut chattered in unison. "Be silent," she said, and they were. She crouched and dragged her nail across the floor, sketching a sigil in dried blood. The lines pulsed with dull, orange light. A flick of her fingers, and a projection of the galaxy bloomed before her, living, breathing, rotating. The slave routes appeared as red veins pulsing across systems. She traced one with her finger, where a thin trail of black smoke curled. Luca's trail. "They think my child is cargo." She smiled, a cruel, sad smile. "They forget. I have cooked men for less." She lifted the ladle from her mortar and poured steaming broth into her mouth. Her pupils expanded until her eyes were nothing but black. "Where is he?" she whispered. The broth answered, not in words, but in sensation. Cold metal, screaming wires, sterile cells, a boy's breath held in silence. "Epsilon 9, she rasped. "Of course. A butcher's moon." She stood tall, taller than she should have been. Her bones cracked. Her spine lengthened. The room warped. She reached into the air, fingers clawing through nothingness until she found it. A scrap of cloth, torn from Luca's tunic. She pressed it to her lips, muttering an old word that had once killed gods. The hut responded instantly. Its legs retracted, its windows glowed, and the entire structure twisted inward, folding space around it like a blanket. Then it vanished. Aboard the Aurelian slave ship Oryx Dawn, Lucas sat in his small, magnetically sealed cell. The lights were dim. The walls hummed with artificial gravity, but he could feel it faltering, minute tremors running beneath the hull. "She's coming," he whispered again. The alien child in the adjacent cell, a tiny glass-skinned Iskari girl, clutched the bars of her cell. "Oh, my mother," Lucas said, watching the ceiling. "She rides a house with claws." The Iskari girl shivered. "What does she do?" Luca looked at her, his expression soft. "She saves me." Light fractured above the orbit of Epsilon 9, and Baba Yaga arrived. The hut landed on the outer ring of the orbital facility, not gently, but like a predator leaping onto prey. Metal groaned beneath it. Cannons auto-targeted the structure, confused by its organic form. They opened fire. The beams hit the hut, then vanished. Not exploded, not deflected. Simply disappeared. Within the hut, Baba Yaga turned her head. She whispered one word in an ancient tongue, and the energy from the cannons was regurgitated, twisted, cursed, and flung back. The defense turrets melted like wax. Baba Yaga stepped forward, mortar floating beside her, pestle in hand like a spear. Her voice boomed across the orbital command channels, ancient magic speaking through every machine, every screen, every implant. "You took my son." Somewhere in the command deck, an Aurelian officer dropped dead. His eyes turned to salt. His skin cracked like porcelain. Her message continued, unrelenting. "Return him, or I will turn your bones into lanterns and your dreams into ash." In his cell, Lucas smiled. He could hear it now, the creaking steps of the hut across the hull, the sound of wood against steel, claws scratching against time. The Iskari girl began to cry. "It's okay," Lucas said gently. "She's not here for you." The lights went out. Then the screaming began, not from the children, but from the Aurelians. The bone forest of Epsilon 9, the penal colony on Epsilon 9 wasn't meant to feel like a prison. It was worse, a processing world, sterile, brutal, and efficient. Its surface was a labyrinth of towers, slave yards, auction floors, and cold gray barracks carved into the rock like scars. Luca sat among dozens of new captives, most of them children, corralled in a holding pen beneath harsh lights. A security drone hovered overhead, scanning, watching. His wrists were sore from the cuffs. His expression hadn't changed. "She's close," he whispered again. No one listened. Not yet. But the wind had changed. and the sky above the colony's dome flickered unnaturally, as if the atmosphere itself were remembering something older than stars. High above, Baba Yaga descended. The hut walked calmly across the shielded landing platforms of the colony, its clawed feet sinking into permacrete like it was wet earth. No alarm sounded. No defenses activated. The systems were confused, unable to define the intruder, unable to recognize it as a threat. She had made them blind. Baba Yaga stepped out onto the platform, bone staff in one hand, a withered sack in the other. She reached into it and drew out a handful of earth, rich, dark, alive. She scattered it across the metal floor. Where it landed, the world began to change. Steel turned to soil. Concrete cracked as roots burst upward, ancient and gnarled. Trees began to grow in seconds, twisting and spiraling toward the sky, crowned with leaves that whispered in forgotten tongues. Skulls bloomed like fruit from the branches. A forest was being born, no, reborn, where only metal had existed. Baba Yaga's bone forest, once thought lost to time, returned with hunger. The prisoners saw it first, green creeping down the walls, bone-white saplings crawling toward fences. And then, something worse, the shadows moved wrong. Shapes twitched in the darkness, things with too many joints, not enough eyes, some that remembered what it meant to be human, but weren't anymore. A guard screamed as he fired his pulse rifle into the woods. The beam struck a tree. The tree bled, and the forest screamed back. Inside the control tower, chaos. Sector 7 is gone, one officer shouted, his voice cracking. Something, somewhere, is rewriting the terrain. Deploy bots, the commander barked. Evac protocols. But the command console turned black. Then words appeared, one by one, in a language not native to any galactic archive. You took my blood. Now the forest takes yours. The commander reached for his calm, but his hand had turned to bark. His mouth opened to scream, but leaves spilled out instead. Lucas stood. The pen had no guards now, only silence. The Iskari girl trembled beside him. Is that her? Lucas smiled. Yes. He reached up and touched the locking mechanism of his cuffs. They snapped open with a quiet hiss. How? She asked. She taught me. All around him, the children's bonds fell away. The pen's gate swung open with a moan. The forest waited. Luca walked into it without hesitation, bare feet finding ancient roots beneath him, branches parting like they knew him. Baba Yaga found him near the central grove. She stood tall and terrible, her shawl dragging behind her like smoke. Her eyes, pure black, softened when they saw him. My son, she said, her voice the sound of rustling leaves and cracking bone. Luca ran to her, burying his face in her robe. For the first time since his capture, he cried. I waited, he said, like you told me. And I came, she whispered, like I always will. Around them, the bone forest breathed. Creatures born from marrow and memory skulked through the shadows, dragging the corpses of slavers behind them. The land itself swallowed watchtowers whole. No ships escaped. No signals were sent. Epsilon 9 was erased, not destroyed, claimed. Far above, in the nearest Imperial relay station, technicians stared at blank data feeds. Processing colony offline, one said, confused. Was it sabotage? No, another replied, staring at the garbled telemetry. It wasn't destroyed. It was overwritten. Silence fell. In a final burst of corrupted video, a single frame remained intact. A wooden hut with legs, walking away through a forest of bone. The price of taking a witch's son. The Aurelian High Command convened in a panic. Admirals, strategists, and planetary governors met in the towering spires of the Imperial Citadel, deep in the galactic core. The destruction of Epsilon 9 was not just an anomaly, it was an affront. A colony had vanished. No survivors. No data. Only whispers of bone forests and walking huts in the void. Deploy the 6th Fleet, barked Grand Strategos Varnak. We will contain this infestation. The Psi-Augurs won't go near the system, replied an underofficer. They say it hums with death memory. Varnak sneered. Superstition. This is sabotage, terrorist tech wrapped in ghost stories. We'll burn it out. But even as he spoke, the room grew colder. The stars outside the citadel windows dimmed, and something scratched gently at the edge of the void. The Sixth Fleet never reached Epsilon 9. Halfway through their transit corridor, the lead dreadnought, Tyrant's Mercy, vanished from all systems. No explosion, no transmission, just gone. The rest of the fleet emerged in a place that was not mapped. The stars were wrong. The blackness pulsed like breath, and then the sky began to move. First, it was a shadow, then it was a shape, then it was her. Baba Yaga stood on the prow of her hut, now the size of a city, floating through space on clawed legs of ironwood and stardust. The Sixth Fleet opened fire instantly. Lasers, plasma, singularity rounds. They never landed. The shots were caught mid-space and unraveled into floating threads, pulled into her mortar, consumed like broth. Then she spoke. Her voice carried on every frequency, every channel, every implant in the fleet. You have taken from me. Now I take from you. From a void, the bone forest bloomed. It spread across space like a slow-motion detonation. Roots of ghost light wrapped ships, cracking hulls like eggshells. Spirits shaped like wolves and widows tore through corridors. Artificial minds began speaking in Slavic lullabies before shutting down. One ship tried to jump away. It reappeared upside down, twisted, with the crew replaced by mannequins of bone. The survivors screamed until they remembered how to forget. In the heart of the storm, Luca stood beside Baba Yaga. He no longer looked like a child. His eyes burned with the forest's light. Branches wove through his hair. His hands pulsed with power that bent circuits and stirred spirits. He watched the Imperial fleet collapse and said nothing. Baba Yaga placed a withered hand on his shoulder. They called you a slave, she said, but you are heir to the old ways. Will they come again? Luca asked. Always. He turned to her. Then we must remind them. When the storm cleared, nothing remained of the Sixth Fleet. Only a single object drifted where the citadel once stood, a shard of bone, etched with alien runes and a single message, translated in every galactic tongue. This one was mine. Others will come. Centuries later, they still speak of the forest witch, of the day the stars bled and screamed, of the house that walks. Some call her a myth, a weapon, a ghost from the first civilizations. Others know better. They whisper her name in shadows, and they do not take from Earth again.